Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today, well, working out inside. And so, I'm not really doing anything too strenuous today. I've got a 32-minute daily recommended workout. And, well, I'm just getting this started with a heart rate of 99, and I'm supposed to get my heart rate up to about 150. So in order to do that effectively, I'm going to be presenting this video to you in this manner for a number of reasons, partly because I need to multitask. And a big reason that I have to multitask is because I tend to cover a lot of the same bases regularly in my daily work. In my daily work, what I'm trying to do is to bring about a conversation that has to do with wellness and conservation. My own health has been particularly impacted by some of the interactions that I have with people I know and people I don't know. But for the purpose of answering some of the questions that have been asked to me recently, even though I've covered those topics before, again, I'm going to have to insist that I'm having to repeat myself. Just as an example, not too terribly long ago, I sold all of my camera gear. And I sold all of my camera gear because sharing the pictures that I take has largely been ineffective. Recently, I showed a museum exhibit where my picture was used in the display, but for whatever reason, I wasn't given credit for the picture that was being used, even though it was told to me that credits were going to be listed on all of the pictures that were being used in the museum exhibit. So, you know, my artwork that I used my own cameras for, out of my pocket, to take that picture and share that insight, well, it was welcomed by the world. It was received and used. Just like the artwork, as an example, that hangs in many of the rooms in Big Bend National Park, at the only hotel that's in the park. For some reason, the pictures in that hotel, even though I took them, and even though my name is at the caption on the bottom of those pictures, they were reframed. They were reframed with borders that go around the picture. I forget what they're called, but either way, the pictures have these borders around them, and the border at the bottom covers up the credits, the part that says who took the picture. So I don't really care whether I get credit for something or not. The only thing I care to do is to share what I can share and help people to understand maybe a little bit of what my perspective is. From my perspective, wildlife and nature has been having difficulties. And part of that, a big part of that, especially as presented in many of the videos that I show here, showcase a lot of the destructive forces that we ourselves have put into the equation. And so I'm sharing that insight along with personal stories where I myself am going through situations where, yeah, I might be getting recognized, but I'm not getting any kind of compensation for it. And that's because of an industry where we can only seemingly accept for someone to get paid by some entity or another. The entities all seem to be pretty tied together with what I'll call just business. The business of business. In my business, where I showcase wellness and conservation, wildlife and nature, the business doesn't really care that all of the insights, all of the things that we have are coming from nature itself. From examples, from resources that are possibly unsustainable. Not even possibly, but are definitely unsustainable. And as we look at nature, whether we can tell how it responded during an event like the Northern Lights, it depends. Depends on what scientists we've been following. It depends. When someone asks me a question like, are you going to be moving to full frame camera? It depends. It depends on if that person has ever heard someone else ask me the same question in the past. Or my response, which was that, why would I get a better camera to share better pictures with people that would not give credit to where that picture came from or what situation warranted that image or description in the past. So, to answer the main question, I don't blame the viewers for not understanding what I'm talking about. Even if I say every time, wellness, conservation, they're tied hand in hand. If I can't help myself, I can't help anything around me. The same goes for pretty much anyone, whether they're arrogant enough to keep asking someone questions that have already been answered, or if they're instead inquisitive enough to go and do their own research. And if you look into my past, you can start at the beginning of these videos for a good portion of it. And if you listen to my past, I include a lot of family situations where I'm having extreme difficulty talking with my father. My father does a lot of the same things. He'll overlook something that I say that's important. Like if I, as his son, who he knows, takes pictures, and if he doesn't have any clue that I don't have any photography equipment, nor do I plan on getting any more, if he doesn't have a clue, part of that might either be because I didn't tell him or because he wasn't listening. So in this case, I don't blame my dad as far as saying, oh, he's such a bad person. He doesn't know what's going on in his son's life. Instead, I offer to you, whether you're my own dad or not, that I've explained. I sold my camera gear because A, the hotel that has my pictures and didn't give me credit or payment, that's no different from even the free services that I submitted my work to or gave permission to use my work, like this museum exhibit, for an example. Even they chose to not give any kind of acknowledgement to what they said would happen. Now, I did hear from the coordinator who gave me the personal tour, and they did send me some response indicating that they were going to talk with their gift shop about the idea of incorporating something a little bit less brand new and a little bit less detrimental to the environment into their gift shop. That's a big plus. That came from this interaction that I'm having outwardly, globally, where I ask you questions. I ask you for insight. I ask you for an example when I send you a personalized link, whether you were able to read that story or not. And because some of you probably know who I'm talking with right now, even if you're just a bystander. Some of you might have received a link from me saying, well, what about this guy's journey? And this guy's struggle? What about his struggles? Are they worth paying attention to, or should we just denounce everybody who's saying that they're running into the same problems? And so, inevitably, I won't get an answer because people can't hear. They can't process things when they're bound by anything other than the Spirit of truth. For you who are listening, who operate with the Spirit of truth, or who you think you operate with the Spirit of truth, you might go, part of what this guy says makes sense. The other part doesn't make sense. And so you might tune out the whole topic. But for those of you who have in alignment to the Spirit of truth, you have the patience to actually hear the whole story and understand how much of a problem there is. Or maybe not a problem, how much of a challenge there is. And because you understand how much of a challenge, and because you recognize it as a challenge from whoever you're listening to, usually you can only do that if you like the person, but because you're able to hear it, you're able to hear other data, and you're able to perceive other perceptions. So if someone else saw something and they're telling you a story about what they saw, like let's say you two have a mutual friend, and that mutual friend acts one way with one person, but totally becomes, let's call it unhinged, with another person. Well, therein you can recognize certain forms of egocentric, narcissistic traits. Now, in my past, I've dated people who really would only be honest in a one-on-one situation if the other parties might have any kind of a way to discern whether or not that person's telling the truth. So in other words, let's say for an example, let's just say someone caused someone great emotional, physical pain in the past. Just because that person says at some point, oh yeah, well you don't gotta bring that up, that's in the past. Anyway, I'm sorry for that. Just because someone says that doesn't mean that they've had a change of heart. Because we've all been in a situation where someone says, I'm not gonna do something like that again. Maybe there are battered spouses out there listening to this who have been verbally demeaned, verbally accosted, assaulted by men, or even by any partner who has hostility in them. And let's just say one day they go a little too far and they smack the person. They physically lash out, you know. That's what the world is right now. It's a lot of people holding back, but in private, which is why marital conflict is a pretty common thing that never gets reported and or never gets prosecuted. Things like that escalate. Here in my city, about a week or two ago, a woman went missing after being seen having an altercation with her husband. Her husband's currently in prison on unrelated charges from what I gathered from the headlines. And the woman is still missing. These are things that are perpetual because of the teachings of our fathers. Nobody gets reprimanded until it's like at that level. Physical assault, that person can go back home tonight. Rape, oh well. They're practicing good behavior. We'll give them time served for the other unrelated stint they had in prison. Murder? Even that seems to be something that doesn't quite fly all the time as far as getting prosecuted, depending on who you are, where you grew up, who you're associated with. So it's been really hard not being associated with a corporation, even though the corporations all love receiving my help. Some of them pay me greatly for it. And then there's this that I'm offering here. The majority of my concern has to do with wellness and conservation. The less angry, unwell men there are, the less battered and terrified women there'll be. And again, I don't mean to just break it down by gender. I'm just saying, usually the bullies, they hide behind the anonymity. Like for an example, the people who bully me on this platform, or who used to, they'll continue to just say things errantly. They don't know me, but they'll tell me. I wish they would tell me to my face. They'll tell me, you haven't talked with any scientists or people that matter. You haven't done anything. As I'm having my work put into hotels, as I'm having my work put into museums that are targeting, telling people of the future, we need to make a change. And as I'm making a difference, right here on this channel, there'll be people that continue to say, are you gonna invest in a full-framed mirrorless camera? Why? Who's watching? Who cares? And even then, is it necessary? Do we need to have more people taking pictures of the event? Or do we really need more people observing the event? Possibly in the scientist community, definitely in the politics community. Every politician out there, if they were to just take off their suits, put on some regular clothes, and be who they are, and go into nature, the chances are they would see a whole new experience that needs to be addressed. And those things that need to be addressed don't need to be undermined. They don't need to be swept aside. Those things that need to be addressed need to be front and center. Like if I, as an adult, cried out, my dad might kill me. He might kill someone else. He might kill himself. I would think that the first responders would give me some kind of, at least an opportunity to have discussed that with them. But instead, the first responders swept aside what my dad did when he burned down my grandparents' home. And then they helped him with the assistance of an older cousin of mine and a former mayor. They helped him to sign paperwork, even though he was using methamphetamines and was a little bit mentally distressed enough to do something harmful, almost to himself. I almost didn't have my dad anymore. No matter who I told, no matter who in all of my circles of people that I told, especially the professionals, people wouldn't respond. They wouldn't acknowledge what was going on. They'd keep asking questions, you know? Like we had to learn the whole history before we did something useful. So for that, what I recommend to the people whose comments are no longer being seen on this channel, not on this platform, but on this channel, the people whose comments can no longer be seen. And you'll know it because you won't get responses anymore. But the people whose comments can no longer be seen have in the past caused me additional distress by going over and over through the same failing patterns, the same failing directions as we've gone in the past. So that's why right now, in the current, what I do is I like to use all of whatever interaction is given to me as an opportunity to speak with whoever it is that I'm supposed to be speaking with. So if you're my friend from the past who started a new account to try and pretend you're a different person from the other one that's no longer getting answered, or if you're a brand new person who I've responded to several times, but you haven't answered my questions more than several times, that's really all there is to this conversation. And at the same time, the other part that I'd like to reinforce is that I'm still putting in all of the effort. I'm still putting in all of the work, and I'm still being overlooked by all the people who wouldn't help. So if I'm asking you for help and then you yell at me afterwards saying you need help, like my father did when I asked him for help genuinely, well, it's not a surprise, and it's not even a letdown anymore. It's more of it freed up my time to not have the same conversation with someone who couldn't really hear what I was saying anyway. So it's kind of like, have you ever had a relative and let's just say one day you were at a house with that relative and you ate some kind of piece of food. For me, let's call it olives. And I ate that olive and I said, oh, I love olives so much. But what if I was just hungry that day? You know, what if I just said it because it was like, that was such a rewarding taste after going the distance of a marathon, or or something like that. What if that wasn't my favorite food? In fact, what if it was near the least favorite foods of mine? And what if I told someone that it only tasted good because I was so hungry at the time? What if they just kept bringing me that food going, oh, this is your favorite food, you love this food, but they never heard the other part? Then you start running into situations where when people change, that doesn't mean the other people's opinion of these people will change commensurately. So if I was a bad person in the past, everyone's gonna still see me as a really bad person, unless they care enough to look past whatever it is that's on autopilot in our minds as we weigh one another. So as I weigh where I stand, I feel like I'm making progress that's beyond progress. And at the same time, I feel like I'm in a world that's designed to be run in a worldly way. I feel like all of my people who I would be talking with are separated by such vast imaginations that someone can only continue to tell me what's wrong with me on my own channel, where I should have the freedom to communicate as brilliantly as I do right now. For some people, you might think, man, this guy's arrogant, narcissistic. Well, we see a lot of what we think of ourselves in the mirror. So if you see that I'm charismatic, I'm powerful, I'm successful, that might make a lot of people jealous. I don't know. I can only theorize based on the type of interactions that I've had on this platform, where I'm doing everything I can using this value-based application, but that doesn't mean that's where all my work goes. That just means I tell a story here. Tell a story hoping that my dad will eventually give me his blessing and accept me, and at the same time knowing that I'm already accepted by my Creator. That knowledge causes me nothing except for success, because I don't even doubt every step that I'm taking. I just keep taking it. It might not seem like I can afford what I'm doing, but for whatever reason, the way things line up, discounts that happen at the right time, money that comes from past transactions that also is tied into futures, future income, these steps that I'm taking towards success are still exponentially greater than someone who's not taking any steps except for to try and trip the person who they're disgusted with. Some people might tell you, well, I don't dislike you. I don't dislike you. There are a lot of other words. It's much easier to say what I feel towards people, which is included. I love you. There's nothing I don't want for you. I want you to succeed because I know how it feels to succeed. I don't want you to fail because I know how it feels to fail. I don't want you to be overlooked because I know how it feels to be overlooked. And a lot of the toughest lessons that I've been taught were taught by my father. And even though the things that he did didn't seem as detrimental as what some fathers do to some of their children, it definitely shaped the steps that I'm taking, the steps that I took, the confidence that I definitely didn't have in my past. And it led to what you see now. And that's someone who just keeps going. So if you have a question as far as what is your past, why are you worthy of doing this? Well, no ifs, ands, or buts. I've got to tell you, you need to do your own homework, just like I did. And even when I pointed at you, look on this video. The only one that can make me show signs of progress is me. And I don't make myself do it. Some people might. I want to do it. I want to be able to play basketball with my best friends again. I want to be able to have meals with my family whenever the time permits. And yet, all of those notions, ranging from childhood desires to current adult dreams of having a Thanksgiving together or a Christmas with my own family, that's a dream that's been shattered for a long time. And so, as everyone out there continues to help shatter records of domestic violence, spousal abuse, divorce, everything that results in medications, anxiety, as our new records are being set in those categories, I'd have to say there's a correlation. I don't know, because I'm not a scientist, right? What I do know is that my workout is complete, and I feel like I could do this, well, for at least 24, 25 more miles. I've only been going 1.88 miles right now. Just to round things out, I'm gonna get to 2 miles, but I wanted to have a little time to clarify. Yeah, I'll answer your questions. You are one person. You can try to test me. But if your questions are already answered, the best I can do is put a link to another video where I've answered that question in the past, or to just ask you politely, hey, do you mind not trying to make me feel so bad all the time? You might not know you're doing it. And I'll only do that because I want you to carry that weight while you're walking around going on your daily business, where you either forgive people and bless people along the way, or you're just something that doesn't need to be anywhere in the picture when it comes to the nutrients and nutrition and nourishment that I need, other than you've done your part. You've asked some questions. Maybe now you've verified who you're talking with. Maybe now you can accept, he's not going to get cameras. Maybe you can understand, well, till I respond to that article, maybe you'll understand. All I'm doing here is saying, look, Dad, you could at least try to have a conversation too. You don't have to continue to be so defensively abrasive that you just can't hear. That's the number one deficiency in the world today. People are not listening because there's a communication breakdown. So I hope this has been cohesive enough, hasn't been disjointed, and clearly doesn't blame the viewer, the one viewer at a time that continuously tries to question everything with their brand new account that seems like a bully. Hopefully it addresses that person, that conversation. And even if not, it doesn't matter, that's not my job. My job was only to present the information as positively as I can, while still at least calling out areas for improvement, because you all know that we can't improve if we have blind spots. I welcome all of your constructive criticism, but some of you don't really have anything constructive at all. And the criticism runs to the point of bullying. One time I asked someone, another entitled person, hey, can you do me a huge favor and tell me if you can understand the words that are in this song that I put together? I even just copied and pasted the lyrics, sent them that separately. The question I got back was, why did you record this in that room? What does it matter what room I recorded anything in? If I asked someone, could you understand the words that I was saying? The big thing is, they couldn't answer. They couldn't answer because, again, somewhere in the mix, the spirit of truth is not there, or it's being silenced. And so, for every anxiety pill that some of you are popping, that's preventing you from even speaking because you're masking the symptoms. If you were honest about your discomfort, which doesn't come from me, I'm not causing you discomfort. If you were honest about it, you would turn that view, looking into the mirror, maybe ask yourself, why am I so mean to that person? Is it because of a judgment against a character flaw that's perceived or that's known? And then at that point, the next question is, am I the judge? Should I judge the person that's causing me discomfort? Or should I recognize they're in my circle because there must be a great need for a conversation about a bigger topic that for some reason, anytime this person touches on, causes me to want to rebut and to come up with reasons to not answer any questions. For me, this has got me so jazzed up that I went an extra quarter mile. I'm at 2.21 right now. Like I said, I could really do this all day long. And as far as completing a marathon, I don't know. I have a feeling I can do it now. I think my health has, well, it's been put on a springboard. So hopefully this rapid acceleration has a lot to do with bringing clarity. And at the same time, even if this was the last video that I made, I'm pretty happy with my presentation. I'm happy with my 2.25 miles. I'm happy with continuing to put in the effort. I'm happy with multitasking, answering those questions, and I'm happy with saying I can't possibly be looking into a full-frame mirrorless camera without the resources that would go with that. Some of the things that I can spend money on are things that I'm actually using regularly. Some of the other things, like the cameras and all of this footage, just as an example that you're seeing here, it's basically what it is. It's something that a certain generation looks at. I would need to be on something like TikTok or Facebook or any other Instagram or any other, whatever the current ones are, in order to be part of this huge network that apparently is worthy of being discussed, worthy of not being ridiculed, worthy of when someone does ridicule someone, all of the other people jumping in and saying, look, you're not the boss of this guy. Why are you even participating in this way if you can't understand? If you can't understand, and this is your first language, there's a problem. If it's your second language, even that should come across cohesively if you look at what I'm saying, and that I have great concern for the wildlife that's out there. So if you want to know what was the wildlife's response to the Northern Lights, well, I heard an owl early on in the evening. I might have even heard two at Palo Duro. That's not too impressive because normally I would hear a lot more activity going on. Normally I would see all the different things that were flying through the air, but I was able to just leave the windows open while I was sitting there waiting for the sun to set, and while I was trying to stay cool in the 90-degree weather. There are pockets of wildlife. There is hope. There are a lot of things that are changing, like museums or hearing ideas from people, nobodies like myself, who have connections, for whatever reason, with their establishment. They're listening to people like me who are saying, hey, let's try to invest in something that's a little bit less detrimental. They're starting to discuss this. And some of the times I think people would not even begin to discuss this if other people weren't bringing the topics up. What if you, the person who keeps asking me questions that really you shouldn't be asking me, what if you found the answers already and said, hey, I want to help this guy? And what if you told your spouse or your partner, or whatever? What if you told your best friend, hey, I know this cat up the road who's talking about this situation. This is what they're showing. Do you know anything about these circumstances? What if you were the person who helped further a conversation? What if you were the one who was the missing link to the payday that I would absolutely use to help my friends out with? I don't have a lot that I need. I don't really have anything that I need. I mean, I don't have a lot that I need to get, anything extra that I need to get. And I don't have anything that it might have been right the first way. I don't even need the things I have to do what I'm doing. I would have a lot less of this if I, A, never took pictures to begin with, B, never used any kind of social media or had this technology, and so thereby, C, didn't really need a phone to tell these things to people who I really otherwise wouldn't be talking with. So with all of that in mind, it's like, all I'm saying is it's a conundrum. We're working with a system that's broken, and it's so broken, but it's really getting more broken because nobody's doing a whole lot to change the circumstance. And so the less we have, the less we participate, which is why I went 40 days without eating, 40 days and 40 nights without eating. The less we participate, the less we generate in terms of waste. The more we can focus on what's actually important, because the less I went with food, the more I started to think about the things I really wanted to do, the things that really were appealing to me. So, it's like, yeah, all food sounds good and I can love a piece of dessert and all this and that. But if I went 3 days without food, the type of food I might want definitely would change. If I went 10 days without food, the type of food that I would want would change. If I went 20 days without food and then I never wanted food again for a period of time, then what would I think of next? And the part I think about is that wildlife is already going without. Wildlife is already going without food. Sorry, I needed to calibrate this before it times out. So I went 2.25 miles, and I went in some shoes, I went in some shoes I got when I wanted something that had red. They're things we don't need. But for me, having not exercised for a long time to try and work out, it really did a number to my knees. So I tried to share insight. If you haven't run, if you're a heavy runner, you should look into these shoes. It might change your life. The more I started to run, the more all of my physique started to change. The more I started to do things like for an example, I can't pick my legs up that high, but to hang on to a pull-up bar for 30 seconds, it's not a problem now. To do pull-ups, I'm still not gifted at that. There are things that I've learned on here, as far as how to get better at the running, at what I'm doing. There are things that I haven't learned on here, even though I've looked at a lot of information, like how to improve my pull-ups. Well, I can't improve something I can't already do. So I have to start at a different level. For anyone who's asking questions about wellness and conservation and who wants to know, well, what can I start doing? I don't know. You know, you already have your device. You're already buying things to go with your device. You're already buying things to do what you're doing. The only thing I can advocate for is that if you yourself are in business, if you're in any business that produces anything, like let's just say the catalogs that we get from all of these environmentally related places, but they still print out all these catalogs to send out in the mail that inevitably just land in the landfill. If you work at a place like that, the default should be don't send out crap. We get all the advertisements we need from everywhere. We can buy anything. At least that's my problem in this nation. And it is a problem because when you start facing addiction, when you start talking with addicts, most of the time the shift from one product will just move to another product. And so in a way, we're all addicts if we can't sit still and enjoy the environment we're in without just nitpicking it apart because we want something to just fall apart. I don't want things to fall apart. I see things falling apart all around me, and the closest I can get to restoring something that's falling apart is my own family, who I know is watching this. You might even be my family, the person who keeps asking me these questions irresponsibly. And if you are, all I can say is it doesn't really matter, because the more people pretend that they're someone and can't talk face to face, even in a group, the more it becomes clear that, yeah, we really don't have everything we need. We don't have anything we need. We're missing a big serving of a higher power. That's just my thoughts. I don't really know, except for I feel positivity when I share a certain kind of message, and I feel like I'm being met with some kind of a weak resistance. The resistance is so weak that the answers have already been provided, and all I have to do is, just like I did at my other job, make a form letter and just copy and paste responses, copy and paste. Instead of doing what I've been doing, which is to be personally trying to respond to everyone, even the people who aren't a fan of me succeeding. And so I'd like to go that far to tell you, this is my response. This is the last response, because you're not responding to me. And it's just an observation. I don't really want to put you in any kind of danger. You're already doing that. I want to put myself in a place of positivity with improved health, better blood pressure, fuller head of hair, less gray, and I'm achieving that. So as far as whatever I show on this channel from here on out, I really don't know what it's going to be. I can assure you that there are options in the description where if you want me to change my channel to something else, you can certainly incentivize it, especially if you're a family who has helped to rob my father. But until that happens to happen, I'm going to continue to share details over and over until this full message and whichever one random target of conversation triggers the thing that finally gets you to be recognized as well, that's what I'm going to do. And it's not going to take a whole lot of effort because I'm just doing what I was doing anyway. Like, for an example, getting my heart rate up, talking with you, but productively sharing that so that you could do whatever it is that you do to properly respond to those around you. So thanks for helping me become the best version of myself. I hope that I'm doing the same for you. Please share that information in the comments. Please give a thumbs up to this video. I don't have to say please subscribe, do I? Please subscribe. I would appreciate it. This channel can be monetized as well. It's going to be difficult because a lot of what I talk about, I'm I don't really know, like other people say, how does it connect? But I do know how it connects. And that's why I keep saying it in such a simple way. How we treat one another is basically the same as we would go out and treat the roadway itself. You know, it's how we would treat the very vehicle we drive to a place. It's how we would treat our shoes. You saw my shoe? Brand new looking. And I've put miles on this thing. Yesterday I did a 10K. I ran a 10K. And my mile per minute got faster with each mile. I did a 10-minute warm up, and then mile 1, I ran it in about 15 or 16 minutes. Mile 2, it was about 14 or 15. Mile 3, it was 13 or 12. Mile 4, it was 12 or 11. And mile 10, it was like 10 minutes and I think 40 seconds, maybe 47 seconds. My fastest mile is 10 minutes and 30 seconds or something around there. So I was about 20 seconds off from running my fastest mile in some shoes that still looked brand new, that I've put over 100 something miles on, in runs like that, in various types of conditions, with all kinds of situation, rain, mud, everything, dirt. And so I'm just saying, you know, we tend to take care of things around us. Things wear out. Sure, our bodies wear out. Things of this earth are earthly. They'll dissipate into dust. But the things that I have in my proximity, I try to nurture it back to life to be as brilliant as it can. And I don't know what other people think that feels like, but I've felt it from people who actually cared about me in the past. Not everyone cares at the same level that they might have cared about you in the past. Like if you got a puppy and then your dog is somehow like gets old and becomes a bother to you, you might not think about the dog the same way unless you actually have love for that animal. Now, if you don't love a person, you're not going to love all the things that happen to them. I have a great friend who took care of his grandmother in her final days. And he had to put a lot of work into caring for his grandmother. He had to put up with a lot of stuff that happens as people get old. You know, going to the bathroom is more difficult. Sometimes help was needed. He told me a lot of these stories. And it was heart-wrenching to know that when she passed away, one of his other relatives decided to sue him for the house he was living in, even though it didn't belong to the person that was doing the suing. Really, it belonged to the person who lived there. And even though that person who was suing was related to the person who lived in the house who passed away, they didn't do anything for that person who passed away. They didn't care for them. So there's a disconnect, you know? Someone's perspective might not see that, hey, this person did a lot of work, lived in that house, cared for the person in that house. And so then you get to the point of wills, property. And then you get to the point of me telling you a story about my own family where something was willed to my dad. And then me being an only child, knowing this, I know my dad has property. It's not the best property. It's not something he was caring for. But his whole family never told him that it was willed to him because someone hid the paperwork when my grandparents died. The will wasn't executed. And later on, while my dad was under the influence of methamphetamines, basically, he was able to legally sign away his property. All of these things are acts that, again, they tie together. Some people can recognize that I'm having the same circumstances as them. My friend had a situation with his grandparents' house that suddenly was being almost stolen from him. I had the same circumstance. Some people I know, the cat up the road had an interesting father. I also have that situation. Some people have had it where their mother couldn't do anything because they were too terrified by the men who were abusing them. I've had that circumstance. Because I've had that circumstance and I don't want anyone to go through that, I would definitely stand up in favor of helping to nullify anyone who was bullying anyone else. Especially if they're bullying someone just because they think they're more powerful than that person. I might not be anything, but I'm committed to making sure that the spirit of truth shines. And even that basic brightness can obliterate the darkness. And that's basically the way it is. So I hope I've answered your question. I hope that everyone else out there has helped to see this discussion through. More than that, I hope that you're having a great day and learning how to take the steps yourself to do something and to use that motivation, whether you share that insight on your personal YouTube channel or whether you just start up a new channel, just to subscribe to someone and enter in some comments. However you do it, I hope you're having a great day, great weekend. Should be the weekend when this is shown. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.